Okay, we're gonna go on script. Do you guys like the way I look? This is a serial occurrence, and I'm back with another great episode for you. Welcome back to another episode of What in the World, the podcast dedicated to spreading awareness of climate change, its drastic impacts, and how we can take action. Cue the theme song before I introduce myself. Boom. I'm your show host, Raisa Ganji, and welcome back. This week's episode, we will uncover the very truth behind blue economy, from what it is to whether it is part of the Tanzanian economy. I find it kind of ironic that I'm not wearing blue, considering I am talking about blue economy. Pretty soon, we're going to have a lot of people guest appear on this podcast, and I'm going to have to dress the part, I'm going to have to dress the part, and that includes my background, okay? Soon enough, y'all will see a different change. Speaking of change, you should really stick to the end of this episode. I have a big announcement to make from What in the World podcast as your show host, and I'm telling you what to do with my hand right here. You must. So, let's begin. Blue economy. According to the London School of Economics, blue economy, otherwise known as ocean economy, is a term used to describe economic activities associated with the oceans and the seas and all the resources. Referring to the definition by the World Bank, blue economy is a sustainable use of ocean resources to benefit economies, livelihoods, and ocean ecosystem health. Activities such as fishing, aquaculture, coastal tourism, renewable energy, and much, much more are just a few examples of blue economy activities. Blue economy is estimated to be worth more than 1.5 trillion United States dollars per year globally. But I must mention that in Tanzania, blue economy contributed to 11% of mainland Tanzania's GDP and 39.6% of Zanzibar's economy. These statistics are recorded by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the UNECA, in the year 2020. So you can see it's quite relevant considering that we are halfway through 2023. You can see how important blue economy is to Tanzanians and to the world. Okay, it's money. Remember from the last episode, I mentioned ZIPA, the Zanzibar Investment Promotion Authority, and how it recognizes the role of blue economy in promoting socio-economic development, which includes utilization of ocean resources to support economic growth. Some examples are aquaculture, recreational activities, coastal tourism, like I mentioned before, and many, many more. But make sure to go back and watch episode 3. All you need to do is subscribe and go to my channel, and you'll see episode 3 right there, ready for you. The very concept behind blue economy embraces sustainable economic growth without destruction of other sectors of economies of scale and ecosystems. Not only does it prevent destruction, but it protects and develops ocean resources and promotes a more traditional way of life. For instance, the empowerment of fishermen on the entire Zanzibar archipelago. Blue economy actually doesn't have a definite definition. It depends on the organization that is conducting the blue economy or blue economic activity. But usually it is a term that is associated with the sustainability which is associated with sustainable activities or sustainable ocean-based economy. The UN first introduced the term blue economy at a conference in 2012, and they highlighted within the conversation of sustainable management that marine ecosystems are more productive when they are healthy, which is a fact backed by science. As we discussed in episode 3, which you really should go watch it, okay? Because what are you doing here in episode 4 if you haven't watched 3, 2, 1? Anyways, it is a fact that is backed by science. As I discussed in the previous episode, the ocean's role in combating climate change, especially through its role in regulating global temperatures and its role as a carbon sink. Furthermore, many polluting activities for ocean resources continue to happen. For instance, there's dynamite fishing, oil spills. Actually, now that I remember, I learned about oil spills and the misuse of ocean resources. Well, not misuse, but basically the activities that were done on the ocean to extract oil. So like oil drilling, underwater oil drilling. I learned about that in like grade 4. I think. I remember it was an oil spill in Mexico. And I also remember that the oil spill was so bad that it got into like the water reserves and people were not getting clean water for a really long time. Looking at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA article in April of 2010. Yes, I was in grade 4 in 2010. Oil spill happened on the Gulf of Mexico where there was an oil drilling rig which exploded and sank, resulting in the death of 11 workers. It has been recorded as one of the largest oil spills in the history of marine oil drilling operations. That's cold. The global impact was large enough to have been conversed about in a primary school setting, just as how climate change should have been discussed when we were super small, so we would have been raised to live sustainable lives unlike using ACs 24/7. Nah, I'm kidding, okay? We need to balance our lives, okay? I'm not telling you to sleep with no source of air. I wish climate change would have been more discussed about or part of the school curriculum. And the impacts of this oil spill are still seen up to this day, which continue to harm marine life and life dependent on the marine life. All polluting activities continue to occur with having drastic impacts just as the same as this. Another polluting activity that isn't really talked about a lot is the plastics and how plastic pollution has accumulated. As a result of this, we have what we know as the Pacific Garbage Patch. The Pacific Garbage Patch is basically a floating pile of plastics that have been disposed into rivers and they find their way to the ocean and accumulate. There are 5 plastic accumulation zones around the whole world, but the Pacific Garbage Patch is the largest of all. How? It is said to be 3 times the size of France. 3 times the size of France and kilometers deep. That's how big it is. It is literally a floating piece of garbage island. It's a floating piece of garbage island that is bigger than France. The Ocean Cleanup has mentioned that the Pacific Garbage Patch is the largest out of 5 plastic accumulation zones in the world, with an estimated 1.15 to 2.41 trillion tons of plastic wastes currently entering the oceans through rivers every year. As they are carried away offshore by waves and currents, these plastics are broken down to microplastics by the crashing waves, effects of the sunlight, and marine life altogether. And as plastic usage increases, more and more plastic wastes make their way to the ocean and hence increase the concentration of microplastics in the Pacific Garbage Patch and the other 5 plastic accumulation zones around the world. Ocean Cleanup is a non-governmental organization founded by Dutch inventor and entrepreneur Boyan Slat that develops technology to rid the world's plastics once and forever. He has a goal to remove 90% of the plastic wastes in the Pacific Garbage Patch by 2040. Plastic being discarded has had a large-scale impact on our environment, from polluting our land to poisoning marine life to making it up the ecosystem into the foods that you and I eat. Next time, you might want to check for microplastics in the tuna or the sushi that you have for lunch, dinner, or breakfast if you're bougie like that. So they brought System 002, like our OG 007. My name's Bond. James Bond. They brought the System 002 and now System 003, which is basically a cleanup methodology that has worked to concentrate the plastics that are floating in the Pacific Garbage Patch together and eventually plan to remove a large majority, like 90% of it, soon enough. I mean, you can check their website to learn more about their work and publication. A lot of research has gone into finding the not perfect, but an efficient solution to removing these plastics. All in all, blue economy is a sustainable way of promoting socio-economic development, all the while ensuring environmental sustainability of oceans and coastal areas. We tend to benefit from blue economy by the power it has to obtain better governance of marine ecosystem, lower emissions, and promote generally healthier standards for human life and the environment as a whole. In recent years, the ocean has become a popular site for generating renewable energy resources such as wind energy, hydropower energy, tidal energy, which are more contextual to the theme of the ocean, okay, which is much more contextual to marine environment. We already know from episode 2 that Tanzania already has a couple of hydropower electric plants, and a few notable ones to mention from episode 2 are the Julius Nyerere hydropower station, Kigagati Murongo hydropower plant, and the regional Rusumo Falls. However, okay, these are not the only ones we have. No. Okay, these aren't the only ones we have. A few more I would like to include episode are the Rufiji Hydropower Project in Morogoro, Songwe Hydropower Project in Mbeya, Ruhuji Hydropower Project in Njombe, Ikondo in Iringa, and the Kigonge Hydroelectric Power Station in Ruvuma region. And these projects are usually run by the Tanzanian Electric Supply Company and funded and owned by the Tanzanian government, but also at times by international organizations and companies. Tanzania also has wind farms. However, all of them are onshore wind farms. Our wind farms do not take advantage of the marine environment to generate non-renewable energy. So this wind farm actually falls under the category of green economy rather than blue economy. But blue economy is not very far from green economy. So it's kinda on the same line. So it's not blue economy because it doesn't directly make use of the ocean resources. However, wind comes in through the waves. So technically, it's on the same line, okay? Capiche capuche, okay? Tomato. One of the wind farms is in Dodoma. Currently, it's in its implementation stage. Perhaps we'll go into depth in other videos on renewable energy resources. Now, any form of economic principle looks good on paper. In theory, everything looks good. That's the beauty of science. In theory, everything's perfect. However, we got air resistance, we got different people, we got corruption, we got lots of things that hinder the very principle behind. And in economics, that's more likely the case because not every human race, not every generation is the same. So economic principle, economic theory is very adaptable. And how has blue economy been adapted to the very context of different countries? So implementation of the principles and the severity of this implementation goes on to demonstrate the extent of the impact blue economy has to the economy of the said country. The UN and the EU, the United Nations and the European Union have developed a long-term strategy which aims to support the facilitation of sustainable ocean-based economic benefits by implementing climate resilient and inclusive blue economy policies. However, it must be noted that the implementation of blue economy strategies at a national level comes with a number of challenges. The first one being the most apparent in African countries. In most African countries is financial barriers. Obtaining blue economy requires a stable economy and long-term financial plan. It is the developing countries that most of the time pay the price, and they pay the price to the impact of what the Western countries have done in the past. Most developing countries are drowning in debt. Hence, you cannot expect the main focus of the country to be transitioning from an agricultural-based economy to a complete blue economy. Another challenge faced with the shift to blue economy is social justice, and culture is usually forgotten. Land and resources belong to communities whose livelihoods are dependent on ocean resources. These peoples are often marginalized group of people. Along with that, the involvement of science and innovation are needed to understand the environmental and socio-economic aspects of blue economy, its demands and pros and cons, and listen not only to expert opinion of their national appointed expert, not limited to political experts, but scientific experts, also from expertise from other nations. Really, this poses a question. With international treaties and frameworks set by organizations such as the UN and other bodies, are they really set in the greatest interest of developing countries? Like, to what extent are they applicable? Well, you need to tune into the next episode where we will be discussing the importance of global organizations, the interconnectedness of countries on a global scale, and how truly impactful are these treaties and amendments and resolutions and meetings. Truly, how impactful are they towards Tanzania and towards other individual countries around the world? How impactful are they? I am Raisa Ganji, your show host, and see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button right there, down there, unless it is full screen, but unfull screen and subscribe down there. And make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms linked below. We are now on LinkedIn and we've been on Instagram for super long. Do you think we should start a TikTok? And that is it. See you next time. Hi, I'm Raisa Ganji of What in the World podcast, and I invite you to join our team. If you are Tanzanian, preferably from Dar es Salaam, above the age of 18, and truly passionate about climate advocacy, well, then you might be the perfect fit for us. Click the link below to the application and apply before the 30th of September. Looking forward to seeing your application. Best of luck. If you like that, be sure to watch the entire episode on YouTube and on our several streaming platforms.